All right, so today we are diving into the world of the E programming language.
Okay.
And, not just the letter E.
Right.
We're talking about a resource called E in a Walnut. Have you heard of this?
I have, yeah. It's a kind of a unique name.
Yeah, E in a Walnut. It's like, what is that? It's intriguing.
Yeah.
And it's a guide to the E programming language, which we are going to dive into.
Right.
And it's supposed to be about building really secure and robust systems, which is interesting.
Yeah, and that's actually where the name comes from, E in a walnut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, E is designed with like security and distributed computing in mind, and it's supposed to be as tough and secure as a walnut.
Okay, so the code is like protected inside that hard shell, kind of.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm kind of getting it now, the analogy.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
So we're looking at the E in a Walnut wiki page, and the section titles are interesting. So we've got ordinary programming, which seems pretty standard, but then it goes into distributed computing
Yeah.
and secure distributed computing.
Yeah, and that's where E really shines.
Okay.
Because distributed computing, that's where you've got programs running across multiple computers, and E is designed to handle that, especially the security part.
Because now you're not just dealing with one computer, you're dealing with a whole bunch of them.
Exactly, and all the communication between them.
Yeah.
You got to make sure that's secure, no leaks or breaches or anything like that.
Okay, so it's like building a fortress but out of code.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay. Now, there's another section here that I find interesting called persistent secure distributed computing.
Okay.
Persistent, what does that even mean?
Yeah, so most programs, you open them up, they run, and then when you close them, they're done, right?
Right.
But persistent systems, they're designed to stay active all the time,
Cool, okay.
even if parts of the system crash or something.
So that's for really important stuff.
Exactly, mission-critical things. Like, think about financial systems, things that can't afford to go down.
Right, that makes sense.
And E is built for that kind of resilience.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now I have to ask about secure mobile code, because does that mean what I think it means? Apps, our phones, things like that?
Yeah, exactly. Mobile code is basically any program that can move from one computer to another and then run. Like when you download a game on your phone or an update for your car, that's mobile code.
Wow, so it's not just like downloading a file, it's like downloading and then it like starts running on your system.
Yeah, exactly. It's active code basically coming from who knows where.
Right, and E is what makes sure that that whole process is safe.
Yeah, E has ways built in to make sure that that code that you're running, that mobile code, is one that it hasn't been messed with. That
Yeah.
nobody's tampered with it and that it can only get to the stuff that it's supposed to be able to get to on your system.
Because you don't want it like hijacking your phone just because somebody didn't think about security.
Exactly. It's a big deal.
So E's got all these like protections in place, but what is it actually like to program in E? I mean, is it like coding in a straitjacket with all this security stuff going on?
Yeah, that's something that people think sometimes about languages that are, really focused on security.
Right.
But E's actually pretty nice to work with.
Really?
Yeah, it's surprisingly kind of elegant how they designed it.
So it's not like trying to write a sonnet with oven mitts on?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
It's more like, so one of the cool things about E is this idea of capabilities.
Okay.
And it's a way to handle security, but without making the code a big mess.
Okay.
So you can think about capabilities like backstage passes at a concert or something.
Okay.
So each pass lets you into certain areas, right? You can't just go wherever you want. You got to have the right pass.
Okay.
It's the same kind of thing in E. Those capabilities, they control what parts of the program your code can actually interact with.
I see. So it's not like you have to build like a security fence around every single line of code. You just have these capabilities that are like keys to unlock different parts.
Right. And the really cool thing is that with this approach, security is just naturally part of how the code is structured.
Okay.
It's not something you have to kind of tack on at the end.
It's like built in from the ground up.
Exactly. And that makes things more secure, but it can actually make it easier to develop too because you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So E sounds amazing, but you mentioned earlier that it's used in some pretty specific areas.
Right.
So what are some real world examples of where E is being used right now?
So one really interesting example is in finance.
Okay.
Because E is so good at security. It's perfect for systems that deal with really sensitive financial stuff.
Right. You don't want any security holes when you're talking about people's money.
Exactly. So think about things like managing digital assets or building platforms for people to trade cryptocurrencies.
Right.
That kind of stuff needs the best security possible, to prevent fraud and make sure that people can trust the system.
Yeah, for sure.
And E's focus on this secure distributed computing that gives you the tools to build those kinds of systems in a way that you can be confident about.
So E is practically tailor-made for the cryptocurrency world then, whereas security is like the #1 thing.
Pretty much, yeah.
What other areas is it used in?
So because it's so good at distributed computing, it's also used in stuff where you have to coordinate actions across a bunch of devices or different systems. So like think about supply chain management,
Okay.
where you need to track, goods as they move from like the manufacturer to a warehouse to a distribution center, then finally to the customer.
Yeah, that's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, and security and reliability are super important for that whole process.
For sure.
And with E, you can build this distributed system where each part of the supply chain can talk to each other securely.
Okay.
They can track where everything is in real time and even automate certain parts of the process.
Oh, wow.
And through all of that, making sure that the data is protected and nobody's messing with it.
So from like digital gold to actual like global logistics, E's got it covered.
Yeah, E can handle a lot of different stuff.
What's been like the most interesting thing to you about the language after exploring E in a Walnut?
I think for me, it's how E makes you rethink what a programming language can even be.
Okay.
It's not just about, telling a computer what to do.
Yeah.
It's about building these systems that are secure and resilient, and they can handle all the complexity of the world we live in now, with everything so interconnected.
It's like E is shifting the conversation from can I build this to how can I build this securely and reliably for the long haul? It's a huge mindset shift for software development.
It really is, and it just shows you how important these ideas of security and distributed computing have become.
Right.
Like in a world where everything is connected.
Yeah, everything's connected these days.
Our phones, our cars, even our refrigerators.
Yeah.
To have a language like E that's designed with that in mind, it's like, it's not just a nice thing to have anymore. It feels like you kind of need it.
It's essential, yeah. It's like you said, the world has shifted, and now we need these new tools to deal with it.
Exactly.
Well, this E in a Walnut deep dive has definitely given me a whole new perspective on what programming can be.
Right.
It's not just about building apps, it's about building that secure foundation for the future.
It is. It's about building the future in a way that's, going to last and that's going to be safe and secure.
Exactly. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
If you're intrigued by E and what we've talked about today, I'd say go check it out.
Yeah.
E in a Walnut is a great place to start, but don't be afraid to dig in and explore even more beyond that.
Right.
E might not be the most popular language out there,
Yeah.
but what it does with security and distributed computing, that's huge. And it's only going to become more important going forward.
Absolutely.
So who knows? Maybe you'll end up building those next generation systems that are going to power our world.
And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into E in a Walnut. It's been fascinating.
It has been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those explorations going. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a fascinating corner of the tech universe.